welcome listeners to That's a Good Card. I'm Ya, and with me is your secret commander in the 99, Kyle. And he's going to have the challenge of getting me to say, that's a good card. While Kyle will be doing the convincing, I'll be playing the devil's advocate. Now is also a good time to remind you to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us. If you have thoughts that differ from the two of us, leave a comment below to let us know. Or you can make a suggestion that you think can change the CEDH meta. All right, Kyle, let's get yapping.
All right, yeah. Thank you for the introduction. I was a little confused as to what you mean by Secret Commander of the 99, but okay.
You're a surprise.
Oh, Kyle. I am the Secret Commander. Okay.
Yeah, you are the.
Are you the commander and I'm the Secret Commander?
Oh, I guess that's what I'm implying. Yeah. I mean, that's not like I didn't want to throw shade.
I was
just like, fair. You are okay. Like that.
No, you are the commander, yeah. You're Tybalt.
Oh,
I'm okay. Oh,
somehow we're still playing Corbold.
Yeah, exactly. We're a minute in and we're derailed. I'm leaving this in. Anyway, today we have a really fun one. This recommendation comes from Madi the Nazgul on X, aka Twitter, who recommended this card. She is super high on Glasses of Urza.
Ooh.
Also want to mention that in our YouTube comments, YouTube commenter Parasite Porch 2523, wow, I probably butchered that, made a comment about Glasses of Urza. So thanks for commenting about your card as well. I'll read what Glasses of Urza does. It is a 1-mana artifact. It reads, tap to activate, look at target player's hand. That's it. I think this is probably the least amount of text that we have had on a That's a Good Card. Boom. That's it. We did the thing. It has one ability. It's 1 mana. It's an artifact. So I don't know if there's any explanation that needs to be done for this card. I don't even think that there is a ruling on it. Nope, there's not even a ruling on it. So it's pretty clear that this card is super straightforward. At least that's what you'd think. But wait, I might be getting into that a little later. Anyway, let's talk about the lists that we currently see Glasses of Urza in. So Moxfield has 187 bracket 5 decks that are running this card, which is pretty low. It's one of the lowest ones that we've had. So I don't think that everyone has kind of seen the truth. Yes, that was a sight joke because these are glasses. Yeah, you were loving that joke, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The pity. Yeah. Well, everybody else was laughing, I'm sure, in their car on their way to work or on their way home. Anyway. So the decks that we see this in, and the number one deck that we've seen this in is actually Blue Farm, which is fascinating. So in terms of top 16 cuts, this card has shown up in top 16 Blue Farm lists, which is actually really interesting. So if the best deck in the formats are in the card, that's something that's kind of caught our eye here. Other lists that we see it in, Elsha, Karavek the Punisher, because it's a crime to look at someone's hand, and Oswald Fiddlebender as another option. Obviously, that's an artifact deck. So, it doesn't surprise me that we see it in an artifact-centric list. I'm sure that there are other lists that run this card, likely control lists. I bet you there's some Talion list out there running it, maybe some other 4 or 5 color control lists as well. But this is where I've seen it. I have only seen it in Blue Farm specifically, anecdotally speaking. It is currently in my Blue Farm list. I will post a link to my Blue Farm list in the description down below. For testing. That being said, I have played 5 games with it in my list, and I haven't seen it once. But I will be still excited to talk about this card. It is in my list right now. I'm playing with it, so I can't wait for the first game that I get it in my opening hand. But yeah, have you seen this card or played against this card yet?
I have never played against this card. I've been aware of this card. I think it's a pretty cool effect. After playing a tournament yesterday, I kind of wish I had this, or somebody, honestly, even somebody was potentially playing this because with the way the meta is right now, I think it's it could feel useful to just have more information, right? Like I think at surface level, and I'm sure we're about to get into it. So yeah, let's get into it.
Well, I'm going to take that first point that you kind of just brought up to kind of bring up my first point with this card, which is that this card can be used as a tool to kind of build relationships, like good relationships at the table. Specifically speaking, this card is a control card through and through. So I think that the idea that there could be a scenario, and I'm going to build this scenario right now, a world where you have let's say you're playing Blue Farm, you have Glasses of Urza. There is a Rogside player at the table, and then two other mid-range lists, let's say. If you are able to look at Rogside's hand and provide that information to the table, you could even be like, hey, look, I could develop myself here. I'm going to go ahead and help the table out. I'm going to play Glasses of Urza, and I am going to look at the Rogside's hand and share that information with you all. I'm doing y'all a solid, right? By doing that, you get one, valuable information of, potentially not losing to the Rogside early or knowing how to sequence your interaction, but also you're making friends at the table so that people at the table know, like, okay, like this guy's doing us a solid. We are not going to lose within the first 3 turns because, this person has helped out. And that kind of bonus can help out down the line when there's tough decisions that need to be made. For example, if later on in the game, there's an Orcish Bowmaster that comes down and you have an Esper Sentinel and your opponent has an Esper Sentinel, you can use this kind of thing and be like, hey, Eyeglasses of Urza turn 1 instead of developing to look at that Rogsai. Please do me a solid, hit their Esper Sentinel before mine. And sometimes that'll work. So I think that it's really like there is a level of using this card as a tool to build friendships at the table that can benefit you as the game progresses. What are your thoughts on that?
I actually really agree with what you say here, but just to play devil's advocate, like there is a chance that I'm not this type of person, but I feel like
that you lie,
person, like not lie, but like also like, like,
or don't share the information.
They don't share the information, or like they just don't like that you're forcing them to reveal hands, right? Like, it's a thing in Magic. It can happen. And sometimes, right, in the meta that we're in, people are kind of just willy-nilly kind of showing hands anyways. Although I learned yesterday, and this is where this card is really interesting to me that you brought it up. Like, I learned yesterday that sometimes people will offer to show a hand and people will straight up decline, which I think is wild. I'd never heard of somebody declining to look at someone else's hand. Really, like, hey, look, I have nothing. It's what they're trying to say. And like other opponents are going, no, I don't want to look. And then like they literally will turn their head away just to make sure they don't even sneak a peek.
That could be multiple things. Some people have a fundamental, like, I don't think that this hidden information should be shared. I don't like that. And then other people, I don't know, maybe they don't want to, like, they don't want the fear to be moved from that person to a different person, if that makes sense. So if you don't have that information, then they look like less of a threat. There's a few reasons why you wouldn't do that. But I think, the very clear rebuttal to this is, you could use this just as you could use it to make friends at the table. You could use this to make enemies at the table.
Right?
100%. Yeah. You don't have to give the information up. So like you could just lie about what you're seeing. It's explicitly look at the opponent's hand.
Not reveal.
So it's not reveal. So you are going to get this information. No one else is getting this information. And technically speaking, that's hidden information. If you're a bad actor, you can change that like crazy. That being said, if you straight up lie and you're like, they have Thassa's Consult in hand, and they have, let's say 3 cards in hand, they could show 2 cards to another person or reveal 2 cards at the table that like, and one of them is not Thassa's Consult, and then immediately you are pegged as a liar and everyone's like, okay, this guy's just a lying like piece of garbage. Yeah, exactly. You could get yourself in a really sticky situation doing that. That being said, you do get someone to reveal the information to other people. So like, it's likely not a good idea to lie with this card. And, maybe I'm completely off base here, but I personally just don't lie in CEDH whatsoever. So I'm not even going to take that into account. And I think we're giving it too much time. I think that using this to make friends is like a really good option for you. And I would recommend either not giving up the information or giving accurate information. So that's my first point. My second point is information can be written down when you're playing in tournament CEDH or any CEDH, really. So obviously there's a group of new CEDH players who are coming into the scene who have never played Magic before, and they're going straight into CEDH. Shout out half of our crew. So like you are able to, with a notepad, write down the things that you see. So you could look at somebody's hand and write down every single card in that person's hand for you to remember. And you can cross off that information as the game goes on. There is no rule against it. It is very common. You know, I personally at tournaments, when I play opposition agent and I look at somebody's hand, the first thing I do is I write down every card in that person's hand. And as they play cards, I cross off every single card in their hand and you can deduce what's in their hand. So my point on this is not only is that really powerful, but it means that playing and piloting this card is not as hard as you might think it is. I think that I'm speaking specifically to the group of people that are like, nah, this card's too hard. I don't know what cards do. I don't know what anybody else's deck does. You know, just like Neanderthal brain, like head empty. I'm going to try to win. Like, first of all, like I'm speaking to you. Not you, Ya. Well, I could honestly be speaking to you, Ya.
Right now, you are speaking to me. Go ahead. Speak to me.
Unironically, this could be a Ya point. So, Ya.
Go ahead.
If you're like, you know what, too much brain power with this card, you like writing down notes is your friend, and it makes using this card and using it well a lot easier. Any thoughts on that, Ya? At your tournament this weekend, did you take any notes?
No, but I should. I absolutely love this point. I love this point. I've always been fascinated and really interested in other formats, but I don't play like 60 card. But I know for a fact in 60 card format, it is a normal, you're probably looked at funny if you're the person that isn't taking
writing down life totals. Like, you have to, yeah.
You're writing down life totals, you're taking notes, you're like, you know, in standard or modern cards that like strip an opponent of cards or like when they reveal and like you get to choose a non-creature spell to like have exiled. Like it's a really common practice and they're always taking down notes. I think this is a great point. I think that is something that it's a great reminder to me that, hey, look, yeah, the next time you go, you already have a notebook, just bring it out, right? And just be the person.
Oh, damn, you don't even have it on the table, yeah? Come on. You can't be lazy.
It's in my backpack.
I bring it out every single time. Shout out, I don't actually know the brand. Shout out mystery brand of the notebook that I have. Imagine. No free ads. But anyway, I think that it's really important. Do you see people at your tournament taking notes? Because I see a lot up here. I think there's a good chunk of people.
Maybe it's a really regional thing.
It's probably like a quarter. No. I would say a quarter of the players up here write down life totals and take notes when relevant. I don't think they constantly take notes, but they take notes when it's relevant.
I don't think I saw anybody at the tournament yesterday, right? And I'm trying to think about like when I went to Fishbowl, right? That's a pretty big one. I think I saw maybe in half my pods one player doing that. I don't remember multiple people in any of my pods doing that. But and maybe this is a good point, and this is good. This is like trying to argue for your point. I also don't win too often at these events. And maybe wait, follow me. Maybe because the way these things work is you get grouped with people with like standings at times after a certain point, right? And that's where maybe if I started taking notes, I could elevate myself to the
winner's bracket
of the bracket.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay. Thank you.
People who have played against me, you know that we're all in the same boat. Like I'm not throwing shade. I'm there with you. Just say.
Just making a point. All right. My third point. So this one comes from Madi directly from Twitter or X. Madi states / makes the argument that Glasses Versa kind of acts like a roundabout card advantage, which doesn't really make sense on the surface level, but here's the explanation that I absolutely love. Basically, when you have good information or perfect information playing into your opponents, you can utilize your resources in a more efficient way and not burn or potentially burn less cards to interaction or things that are going to happen on later turns. For example, you use Glasses of Urza to look at target opponent's hand, the next opponent in turn order, let's say. There's a massive board right now. You look at their hand, you see a Toxic Delusion hand. They have no creatures on board. They have no other actions that they are likely to take unless they draw into the nuts. You know that Toxic Deluge is coming down next turn.
Yeah.
Are you then going to play your Grand Abolisher? Hell no. So like that's the kind of value that you can get and quote unquote card advantage out of this, because you're not burning your cards, like playing in a way that would basically put you back cards or make you lose cards. Something like playing a Grand Abolisher and passing. A lot of times that's seen as a very powerful move, right? If you Glasses Versa the next person, you see that Toxic Deluge is coming down. Guess what? Doing that is actually a bad play, right? But you don't know that unless you have Glasses Versa. So you're saving yourself that Grand Abolisher that you would have lost, right? The same thing with like you Glasses Versa somebody's hand. They have a Mental Misstep in hand. Are you going to play that Mystic Remora now? Probably not. You're going to wait until somebody else plays their Mystic Remora or plays their Gamble or plays something, their Imperial Seal that gets misstepped. I know personally, I'm not casting a fish into a misstep. There's no planet I'm doing that. I'd rather land pass. These cards are really important resources. And if you are able to navigate around the things, the knowledge that you find through looking through your Urza's Glasses / Glasses of Urza, I don't know why. I'm just going to point that out right here. If I ever say Urza's Glasses, I say it backwards all the time. I'm talking about this card. And you typed in Urza's Glasses. Okay, yeah.
I was like, where the hell is this card? I could not find Urza's Glasses.
It's Glasses of Urza.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if I say Urza's Glasses, it's the same thing, please.
Yes.
I'll try not to
Agreed.
say it, but Glasses of Urza. Anyway, that's the third point, is that it's kind of card advantage. It's a roundabout way. It's card advantage the long way. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this is a really strong point as well, right? Like I think the big thing here is with the meta the way it is, this in those tight moments can feel really powerful, right? Having like, okay, everybody keeps feeding that the blue farm player, right? Everybody's feeding it like classic situation, right? It's maybe like a Rogzai is feeding this card, and like everybody's trying to stop Rogzai, and Rogzai is pretty straightforward with what it's going to do. It's going to try to keep punching you in the mouth, right, until you give
repeatedly,
up, or he or they run out of gas, right? You now need to really know, like, okay, do I continue to try to like fight this fight on the stack against Rogzai? But like, what's Blue Farm doing, right? And I think in those moments, like getting that information of like, are they just priority bullying down to you? Like you're sitting in third seat, fourth seat, right? Like it's good to kind of get that information. And so like maybe they're not being dishonest, but they're withholding, as a good player should be, withholding information about how they're passing. Oh wow, like you got nothing, and it's like no yapping's gonna help there.
Do you know the Bradley Beal meme? Yeah, the one where he's standing there with his hands on his hips, and someone says, "You suck," and it was like right after he like dropped 40 or something like that. And this was like peak Bradley Beal, NBA basketball reference, by the way. TLDR, really good basketball player. There's a clip of somebody going, "You suck" to him, and he stops and he puts his hands on his hips and he looks at the person in the stands like, "Really? You think I suck?" And it's like an obvious like, "Oh, you think I suck?" I'm gonna put the the picture on the screen here so you can see it. But that's the face that you can give your opponent when you know they have a counter spell to stop something. Like Necromancy on the stack, you know they have a swan song. You look at them and go, you give them that Bradley Beal face. You're like, I know you have a swan song. You need to counter this. If you don't, like everyone at the table is gonna be like, "What the hell are you doing?" You know.
Yep.
And that's without having to give up any of your information of your own, right? So anyway, my next point is that it's a repeatable action, which is really cool. So it's not an engine. I'm not going to use the word engine. I think we throw around the word engine a lot on this podcast, but it's not necessarily an engine, but it's a tool, and it's a reusable tool. So if you play this down with the games going longer, you play this down turn 1, you play this down turn 2, hell, it's even nice to see later on in the game. Like I wouldn't mind one bit drawing into this in a grindy board state where I have 8 cards in hand and I'm like, oh shit, okay, like how am I going to break through this board state? This is actually a gas card to draw. Because if someone doesn't counter it, then guess what? You get to see somebody's hand. the other person who has 12 cards in hand, right? And I don't see really any world that this card's getting countered, but you never know. I don't know. Maybe somebody missteps it. Shit. but but what I'm trying to say is like getting out of early super useful to stop like losing the game from Rogsai or whatever. But at the same time, just because it's really good early, it's also really good late. So the fact that it's a repeatable action, if you get it down early, you get multiple instances of it. You can just keep gaining that information over and over again. But even if you draw it later on, it's just going to help you right away. Like the effect is still going to be potent. But the repeatable aspect of it's really cool. I don't think it's really relevant, but during this repeatable point, I'll also point out that you can use artifact untappers, like key, to like untap it if you want.
Good card.
And like look at multiple. That's a good card, manifold key. If you haven't heard that podcast, you can go back and listen to that one too. But technically speaking, you can use this to untap and tap, so you could look at multiple players' hands at the same time.
Yeah.
My final fun point is just like a bunch of little random fringe stuff. It turns on Mopal, so you can get that out early. It can be bargained post use, so you can use it to look at somebody's hand, then cast Beseech the Mirror, sacrificing it. It's artifact fodder in general is never really bad to have, right? And then you can even use it in certain Hullbreaker horror loops to make like infinite storm count, right? Even if you have just like a soul ring and you're net neutral, it's
true.
Still you can make infinite storm off of it just because it's a 1 mana artifact. And if you have any cost reducer like Elsha, then it becomes a 0, and now you can go infinite in like crazy different ways with like a million different ways. But anyway, that's my fun point, is just a couple of fringe aspects of it. This card's a really interesting one, that's for sure. And it's really hard to give a tangible value to it. Just because information is really valuable, but it's hard to be 1-to-1 on something. Like how many cards is having this information worth? Like it's really hard to know. And I think that's why many pilots are scared of it, because they just don't know how potent it's going to be. And I'm really excited. Look, this is going to stay on my blue farm list for at least like 15, 20 games. And I need to see it and use it at least like 5 times for me to get a better feel. I'm a big feel guy. For me to know if the card is good, I have to feel it out. Like I have to play the card. I have to get reps with the card in multiple different pods and multiple different scenarios and kind of get a good understanding of it. I can't do that until I've got those reps in. So, or at least played against it, because it's both ways, right? So I have to either see the card absolutely stomp me over and over again, or I have to stomp other people over and over again with it. So,
and listeners, Kyle's serious. Kyle went down to his this afternoon, went down to his LGS, and basically they paid him, or they paid more money, because like this card is cheap. It's like really cheap, and they probably lost money selling this to Kyle.
Yeah.
He's testing this out for real.
I bought it for like 34 cents and then just jammed 5 games. Didn't see it once. Feels bad. But but I've had it in my like box field version of the list. I just hadn't had it in paper. So anyway, that's my last point. Yeah, I'm ready to hear the downsides. What do you got for me?
Like you said, I think that the downsides here are probably more of the things that people you all are listening are potentially thinking about this card, right? Kyle, I think, put it really well at the end there. One of his last comments was like, it's hard to put value in a game right now that is all about like value engines, right? Like I just got to mull for a value engine. I've got to do this or that. And this is one of those, like, you'll look at first glance, it's like, well, how do I really get value out of this? Right. I think that Kyle did a really good job of bringing out different like points there. But listeners are probably thinking on the first one is like, this kind of feels power crept a little bit. Like you said, it's one of our simplest cards, in the sense that all this does is looks as an opponent's card, which is really valuable and really I
looks at the
really
hand.
think looks at the hand. But at the same time, you have other cards that I actually don't remember all of a sudden if we've talked about or we've considered talking about, like either like a duress or a surgical extraction that does a really similar thing. And on top of it, right, you get to look through not only their with surgical extraction, let's say their hand, but you look through their graveyard and their library for a specific card, and it removes that card.
Yeah. There's a removal staple to it, whereas the glasses is just look. Just look, no touch.
Just looking. Again, and I'm not arguing the value of information that you gain for that. And I personally really do think that that's really powerful. It's more of the yes and, Yeah, like what else can you do for me? Nah, that's it.
Yeah.
Here I
You
am.
just get to look. That's it. I get it. And I don't think that it's necessary. I personally don't see it as being power crept just as a rebuttal to it, just
Yeah.
because I think that like to the duress or the surgical extraction, like the things that are going to deny and like take away something, I see those as in a completely different vein because one, those are not artifacts that are sticking around. So I mean, duress is a sorcery and surgical extraction is instant. So it's like those are, you know, in completely different veins of what they're doing. I think they're all very different
No,
cards.
agree
So
completely.
like it's hard for me to say that those cards power crept Glasses of Urza when like Glasses of Urza is doing something very different. I think the consistency aspect of Glasses of Urza is what makes it so good. And yeah, if it was
The,
like 1 mana artifact stack like Glasses of Urza, look at target player's hand, like that would be ass. Like if it was a one-time thing, I would say yes, that is terrible and like not repeatable. Therefore, those other cards 100%. But I think because it's repeatable and because it's on a body and it's feeding the mopals, feeding those other things, it feels very different.
I didn't know where to put this kind of comment slash question to you, but I think now is as good of time as any. I do think it'll derail us for a second, but I
Yeah.
think now is a great time to potentially bring up telepathy.
Oh God. Yeah.
Right? It's similar, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very different, right? It changes
It's
the
way
game.
different. I think it's way
For
different. And
listeners, telepathy is a blue card, one blue pip. It's an enchantment. It reads your opponents play with their hands revealed.
yes. So I mean, it is going to derail us a little bit.
But
And many
it's going to
listeners
derail. But I do
have
think
asked for
there's
us to talk about this card. So they're getting a mini pod
similarities,
right now. Yes, I'll
right?
talk about it a little bit. So like, yes, there are similarities in a sense that if you're the controller of this ability, you're going to get to know your opponent's hand. That being said, telepathy completely warps a CEDH game.
Yeah, it does.
I've
It
seen it
does.
firsthand. So like
Have you? I haven't.
it's
I've never seen this
very
card played.
yes,
That's not
yes.
entirely true.
And
Once. I've
yeah.
only seen it once.
So I saw it at Fishbowl too. I wasn't in the game, but I was watching the game. The way it warps the game is like almost unlike any other card in Magic. Just like having three people play with their hands revealed, it turns into this unplayable nightmare state where like nobody wants to do anything. They're awkwardly 3v1ing, but also not 3v1ing because they're scared because everyone's playing a CEDH deck and they can see all their opponent's hands and they see all the gas. It creates the Spider-Man meme where everybody points at each other and it's like, it's actually a hellhole. It's so bad. Like, uh, one of the reasons I didn't want to do a podcast on this card was just because that's one of those cards that I just can't, I can't with it. I don't hate it as much as something like a Pact of Negation. Because I just think that
Oh
card's
man, are we
completely
getting a
different.
mini Kyle
Like,
rant?
yeah, we are a little bit. We're getting a mini Kyle rant. So listeners, also now a good time to plug our Patreon where I did a 50-minute podcast on Pact of Negation and all the aspects of that card that makes it toxic for the format. So if you're interested in that, join our Patreon. It's only $3. Woo! Anyway, telepathy. I don't think it falls in the same category of Pact of Negation, but holy shit. It doesn't even feel like CEDH. It doesn't feel like an EDH game whatsoever. It's just so weird. I don't know. I don't know if I can say any nice things about it, to be honest, because I truly don't even think that the person who plays and controls telepathy is in that much better of a position than they would be. Because, like, likely if you're playing that, you're like probably playing some sort of control list. And then under that circumstance, like you're not going to be winning on the spot. Sure, if telepathy resolves, you can be like, is my window here? See all the counter skills going, nope, okay, pass. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't, this is a glass. Anyway, this is a Glasses of Urza episode, not a telepathy episode. I likely
I
won't be
knew I
doing
would
an episode
derail.
on telepathy. So I'm sorry to all of the listeners out
Just so
there.
you know.
Just so
Yeah,
you know,
there you go.
it's on
There
the
you go.
card recommendation list. I don't want to get into it. Anyway.
Okay. We don't have
Maybe
that
that'll
much time.
change someday. Glasses of Urza. Back to it, y'all.
Okay. So my second point then, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there with one of your last comments. So again, like you just mentioned with telepathy, right? You see everything, all the information. I would say the same thing here. Like you get that information and you now know you're about to be cooked. And you tell the table, and all you now know is like the doom is coming, and like the table can't do anything about it, right? Like that's like it's almost more of like it just there are those games where that person's going to have all of the answers, right? And except this time you're just not gonna be surprised by it. Like you look at their hand, and it's not only the Thasses and the demonic consultation. There's also the tainted pact, and they have counter magic to back it up, right? And it's like, I guess what I'm arguing here is that when the inevitable is about to happen, like what good is that information? I guess is like my kind of question is like,
Yeah. We're kind of getting into a full philosophical question here.
right? Really,
it does kind of. It's like, yeah, it's gonna feel bad when you look at that and you see you're already dead. I'm gonna float that magic card up on the screen here.
It's a good one. I love that
card. Yeah, I just recently. I don't know how I didn't know that card existed, but anyway, I like it's like a. I guess it's a philosophical question. If you're cooked, you're cooked. I don't know. The rebuttal. There's a little bit of bliss in knowing that
it's coming.
Yeah, you could just start singing to yourself. In Lord of the Rings, where is it Pippin or Merry? Shit, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. Imagine not knowing this. Start singing as Faramir is like going towards Osgiliath to his death. It's like it's the same thing. Maybe you just start singing that to yourself to the table, and the table just gets really confused. You're like, home is behind.
That was really good. I'm actually really impressed. I like that.
And meanwhile, the person that you're looking at with glasses of Urza is just eating tomatoes aggressively.
Dribbling down inside of his corner of his mouth.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that was too much. But like realistically, like there's nothing you can do. If you're cooked, you're cooked. Kind of reminds me of like in a tournament, this past weekend that I played in, I was doing a manual storm term with Corvold. I was doing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Ended up getting stuffed, right? Ended up stopping, moving on. We drew at the end of the game. Somebody just like shows me like a silence, a force of will. Somebody else had like all these things. Everyone was just watching me durdle, knowing like oh, you sweet summer child, you're so dead. Like there's nothing you can do. You can keep on doing all these game actions. You ain't getting through all this, And there was like it was almost like okay, well that's funny. Like you guys let me just friggin' draw a bunch of cards and go through and teeter on the edge for 30 minutes, knowing full well that there was no freaking chance I was gonna win. It's like, I don't know. I think it's kind of a non-point in that sense. Where like, sure, if you look at somebody and you're already dead, that sucks. It feels bad. But guess what? Whether or not you had the glasses of Urza, you're already dead.
You're already dead. And so I guess like that's my whole point. Like, well, like, and I think that's why I do think this card is what I guess what I'm arguing is this card is so difficult to evaluate in that regard. It's so simple, right? It's so
simple. Like you could cut it for something that could have saved you. Is that the thought process?
Right. Yeah, a little bit.
If only that card was a stifle, a trick bind, something that could stop me.
Surgical
extraction, sure. Yeah. Something that could like pull something out of the yard. Maybe they're like presenting a breach line. You're like, damn, I wish that was, something that could affect them. I wish I had a Noxious revival. I don't know. I do like that point of it. The fact that it's like, oh, if you're dead, you're dead. Like, but if you extrapolate that to like, oh, if this Glasses of Urza was something that could help me interact and I wouldn't be dead, that would be nice. So I get that. Cool. What's your next point?
My last point is that while this is a repeatable, I do think that the floor for this, right? I do think that if you're playing Seaborn Muse with this type of thing, or what's the artifacts only untap? Oh my gosh, I can't think of it.
Unwinding Clock.
Unwinding Clock. This is pretty neat.
That's crazy. I didn't thought about that.
Unwinding Clock with this,
I should have added that. Right? That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Seedborn Muse and Unwinding Clock. Damn, yeah. Thanks for helping out.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
That's crazy. Then you can just perma look at everybody's hand.
The opposite end of that, the floor for this card is it's going to happen once a turn cycle. Yeah. And while the information is good, I think that especially in this meta, I think that, and listeners, I'm like settling in, the added decision point of when to use this can be not overwhelming, but it's just another point where you're like, okay, now I have this other tool. When do I use this? Right.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to use this too early into a turn, right? Unless you're trying to jam.
Yeah.
Because with the way this card works is like once you use it, unless you can untap it, you're not using it again. And so the information could be good at the beginning of the turn, literally at the first main phase. But like as spells start going on, and like let's say that you looked at that person's hand and they had like just even a Rhystic, right? Not to mention like a Rhystic and a Mystic and an Esper Sentinel or like a copy enchantment. That information really changes. And while the information is good and you can't really help it, I think that, and this is coming from a person who, and maybe I'm just not experienced enough in this yet. I would consider myself more of like a turbo, a little bit more greedy.
Yeah, you're definitely more
Really
of a turbo
tried
player.
I've really tried to be more. I played Marnius all day yesterday, and it's a lot of decision points to make. Like, do I interact now?
Yep.
No. Wait.
It's
Do
a
I wait?
difficult. Yep.
Right. And
It's really
now
difficult.
adding, if you're new to this, and like you've kind of suggested, as listeners are like I am, adding another thing that like, okay, cool. Now let me look at this person's hand. Oh crap! Now I have all of that information. I'm not saying this is bad, but I'm thinking it's also slow, right? Like,
Yeah.
when do I use this? Right? When do I find out? Like, do I wait for that stack to be really high right before I have play my last gotcha?
Yeah.
Right? Or do I do this after somebody's been fed a bunch of cards? And I think this is what I mean by going back to my first point. This power crept in terms of, with this type of card, I'd want a way to repeat it more than once a turn, right? Like I
Yeah.
almost want to pair this with a voltaic key or a manifold key, right? To make sure that I can get,
Or the seed word muse or the unwinding clock. Yeah.
so I can keep that information fresh.
So you
Right?
brought up a bunch of points here, and I kind
Yep.
of want to address some of them because I think they're so the first thing I think about is like, okay, the idea of adding a decision point, when do you play this card? Or when do you activate this card, rather?
Right.
So if you have it on your board, my thought process is like, okay, are you trying to resolve a large payoff spell, something that is likely to get countered, something that is likely to, raise alarm bells? Do you want to know if it's good or not to utilize that thing because it's good to play it at this moment? Then I would activate it to see if the quote unquote coast is clear. That being said, if you're not going to do that, if you're just going to play something that is likely to not get interacted with, you're just going to play a ranger captain and pass. I don't think that there's any point in doing
No.
it on your turn. Just like look at
Agreed.
somebody's thing. At that point, you just wait.
Right.
And then the use case that I see most commonly, or how I guess because I haven't seen this card a lot, but how I would just like gut reaction as a pilot, how I would see it be used is like big spell on the stack. Nobody knows what's coming next. Everyone's kind of confused in that weird point of like, should we be fighting over this? Should we not be fighting over this? Then you go, hey, y'all, I want to make this real easy. Activate Glass of Urza. Look at his hand. Go, oh, shit. Yeah, he's got all of these things in hand. We're cooked if this resolves. Yeah, definitely counter this because he's just got a creature combo waiting behind this one tutor. So you're like, yeah, we should not let the tutor resolve, I think that is kind of how I see this card being played most effectively. If it's not like me jamming and wanting to know if the coast is clear. But yeah. The second aspect that I kind of wanted to point out here is like it's a great point. If you're a new player, it gets really difficult because even if you write down the names of these cards, you might not know what the hell these cards are. Like straight up. You straight up could forget what the card is doing. You could write down, okay, cool. They have, Finale of Devastation and Thraben Charm and a Bolt Bend. And then like 4 turns later, you're like, oh, they haven't used a Bolt Bend or a Thraben Charm. What do those cards do again? like that is a very real thing that could happen. Okay. So
you look at a wrong glass hand.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
This town ain't big enough? What?
Yeah. What is this town ain't big enough do again? So like I get it. And I know there's probably people listening being like, huh, that's a bad point. What, I know all the cards and
that's not true.
And
I don't
guess
think
what?
so.
I doubt it. I doubt everything on every single card that is played. So also there's like a fringe downside in that sense. I'll help you out a little bit of like, what if you do it to a deck where it's like a fringe deck and you have no idea what the hell's going on in the deck?
Rao, Monsoon. You're looking at it. It's like,
is that your kryptonite? You're like, I don't know what the hell's going on here.
It's all cantrips. Like, okay, he's just
all
going to try
random Outlaws of Thunder Junction commons and like random shit.
What do you do?
You're like, what is happening?
Lands, all lands.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. So those points are definitely speaking to the common CEDH player. If you're a CEDH super grinder, one, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. We're just a bunch of bums who like laughs. I guess it's for the humor. But like, I think that's a good point. Is just if you're new, could be tough, but also, the floor is pretty low if you're only getting it once per turn cycle and you don't really know when is the best time to possibly use it. So there's a lot of variables to this card.
Sweet. I feel like this discussion was actually This was really good. That was my last point, and so now is a
Cool.
great time to transition to what point of mine do you think best supports for why this card is going to stay a 101st, 102nd, 110th card?
Wow, throw 110th in there. Damn. All right. um, I think that it's like it's the point where we kind of moved into of like, okay, you play this card, you activate the card, you look at somebody's hand, you see that you're doomed, and you're just like, damn, if only I had something else that I was running in this deck that could stop the doom from occurring. I get that. I think that that is the hardest part about this card is like that intangible opportunity cost of, well, shit, if I wasn't playing this card, I could be playing something else and this game could look completely different. That being said, the other side of that coin is like, okay, in the times that it is really effective, like I don't see how there could be another card that could have done the same thing, like filled the same role in a better way.
Hmm.
And if that's the case, maybe the card is relevant. Like I truly like if you line up all those things that you mentioned, telepathy, surgical extraction, duress, like I think Glasses of Urza clears them all. I really do. For the effect that you're trying to go for in terms of being gaining information, I think it's the best by far because it's
Hmm.
repeatable.
Yep.
And you could argue, I think, the telepathy stands in the chat will argue that telepathy is better, but guess what? You're wrong. That's my anecdote. Anyway, that's the point I like the most is like that weird sunken feel, like it's not sunk cost fallacy, but it's more of like the thought of the opportunity cost. Like, what could have I run instead that could have saved me from this impending doom?
Right.
You know, cool. What point of mine do you think is the best point for Glasses of Urza?
That's the right name for it. I actually had to think about that. My funny answer is you get to make friends, right?
Yeah.
I love that point. But the real answer is honestly Maddie's point about using this as information to know whether or not you could or shouldn't, what you should commit to the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, cool. I had two really good plays here. I could play this three CMC value piece, or I could play this Ranger Captain. Probably usually good for Ranger Captain, but like now, like you're kind of stuck in a quandary of like you have the resources to commit one piece to the board and hold up to mana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which one do I do? Like, how should I do this? Use this. Look at the person who you think is about to pop off. Oh, they have half of their combo for a breach. Now's a great time to play that Ranger Captain, right? And make them slow down, make them have it. I think that's really valuable. Or like you
Yeah.
said, the deluge. Oh, cool. Not going to commit all of these rocks
Yeah.
down onto
Yeah.
the board.
Or not rocks, but dorks, if it's deluge. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So you could say to yourself with the deluge
I think it
point,
was Calling
like,
Ridge. Yeah,
yeah, calling ritual. Okay, yeah.
Calling
And
Ritual.
calling ritual,
That's
yeah,
what I was
exactly.
thinking.
You see a calling ritual, you're like, cool, I'm not going to play all my rocks. You see a
I'm done.
deluge, and you're like, cool, I'm not going to play my ranger captain. I'm going to play the Sylvan Library instead.
Right.
Cool. All right, yeah. Did we convince you? The power of myself, Maddie, and YouTube commenter is Glasses of Urza a good card?
I'm going to. I'm really torn. I'm actually giving it some really good thought. I do think so. I think that this is a
Ooh.
really interesting card. It doesn't present itself with like a lot of value. Information is good, right? But like, especially in this age of CDH, like it doesn't get you a card. It doesn't give you immediate tangible right effects. Unlike what Maddie was suggesting, but I think that it is a untangible that is so valuable, right? It's getting you information that can help you predict the way the game is played, right? Once you play enough, like you can already tell, right? Like that person's holding up ad nausea mana, right? Or that
Mm-hmm.
person's holding up for their Valley Flood Caller or an Orcish Bowmaster or a opposition agent. This really bring evidence for your intuition, right? Like it gives you like, yes, I was right before you get got, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's really important. That before you get got, let's just suss this out, right? Let me suss this out before I go gamble,
Before I go punting again. Yeah.
right? So yeah, I think this is potentially a really good card. I do think it slides in. I'll say at the 100th slot, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
running like Angel's Grace, cut that for this maybe. Or
That's
I know it's not
crazy.
the
That's
same. I
literally
know it's not the
exactly what
same.
I cut in my blue farm
Really?
list.
Right.
How'd you call that
Right?
shit? Yeah,
Right? Because Angel's Grace.
I was coping really hard with Angel's Grace in my blue farm list because like I just love the feeling of like Angel's Grace Adnaz, but I realized I didn't need it, you know? And I think that there's, you know, if you're on a blue farm list that is like, you know what, I want to go slower. I don't want to be turbo. You cut ad nauseum for Glass of Urza. That changes, it warps your deck. You know what I mean? You probably have to make a lot of other
Whoa.
changes too. Like, yeah, okay. Slow down here. Slow down here, turbo.
Whoa.
You have to make other changes to your deck, but when you slot out those 8 support cards for your ad nauseum and plug in 8 control cards, you know, you're taking out your Rite of Flames and you're putting in your drawn in Linvalas and Glasses of Urzas, you know, it's like that's a change that you can make. You're fundamentally changing what your blue farm list is and moving it from turbo to control. But if you're going to be in that control shell, sure, why not?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like that 1-for-1, but I'm just saying, like, you take out the turbo package and you're going to put in a control package. Glasses of Urza could be in that control package. Who knows?
Yep.
Shout out Jason from Critical EDH. I'm sure he will comment and say, nah, card's bad or something like that. Because he doesn't run it.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
In that way,
anyway,
too.
nah. Anyway, all right. It's time for our favorite closing segment. That's a good card, question mark? If you haven't played with us before, what we're going to do is I'm going to provide Ya with the name of an obscure Magic the Gathering card. And it's going to be Ya's job, as well as yours, the listener, to guess everything about that card. All right, Ya, are you ready for your card?
Yeah.
This one's going to be tough. It's only been printed one time. I'm giving you a hint here.
Whew, okay.
So you got to go deep in your bag for this one.
Oh boy.
Listeners, pause after I say
That's dangerous for all of us.
the card name. If a listener guesses this one in the comments, kudos to you. This is going to be you got to go deep in your bag for this one. All right. Your card is Grotag Thrasher.
Wait, Grotag?
Grotag. Grotag Thrasher.
Golgari card.
Okay.
It's a
mana cost.
dude. I'm gonna go out on a huge limb here. It's a 6 CMC.
Okay, how are we dividing up those pips?
It is. It's gonna be 5 and 1. Oh wait. I said Golgari. Oh. Okay, I got it. It's 5 and hybrid mana. Golgari.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I cheated. I cheated a little bit. Okay. And it's gonna be. Oh wow, this is too good. It's gonna be a 5/6.
Okay.
It's a 5/6 for 6. It's a creature swamp thing. Oh.
Swamp Thing is the okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Swamp Thing.
It's going to have at the beginning of your upkeep, exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Otherwise, I'm going to use a really old term because I'm assuming this whole from Magic. Bury something Thrasher. Grow. What is it again? I'm now
Grotag.
Grotag, not Grogari. Otherwise, bury Grotag Thrasher.
What's the artwork?
The artwork is this. It's covered in like vines, but like just a little bit of it is like the muzzle of like a wolf, right? So almost
okay.
like it's like a wolf swamp thing, and
the wolf swamp thing, yeah,
and it's if imagine thrashing through the 4/swamp, like the chasing after these 2 little elves that were out for.
Oh wow. Wow. Is there any flavor text on that?
Will and Rowan were out for a quick stroll, only to be abruptly chased home by the Grotag Thrasher.
Wow.
Yeah, a little story, if you will. This card is all about the story.
All about the story.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was rough. But
yeah,
my
rough.
favorite part about this is how you were like, you know what? It's an old card, so we're going to use the bury term. But at the beginning, you used exile in your description.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh.
Remove those cards from the game. There you go.
Remove
3 cards from your
from the game. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, you weren't close, but
No, not at all.
listeners, I wonder if you were. So Grotag Thrasher is 5 CMC. It's 4 and a red. It's a creature lizard.
No.
It is a 3/3. So not as big as you thought.
Jeez.
It says whenever Grotag Thrasher attacks, target creature can't block this turn. The flavor text is awesome, and it goes with the art. The flavor text reads, the goblin fancied himself a rider. The lizard was happy with its new flail. And the artwork is like this thrashing lizard and this freaking goblin holding on to like the reins of the lizard for dear life, getting just tossed around like a flail. Good. It's awesome artwork. The card is terrible. 5 mana, 3/3, but it's a pretty good one. This is from World Wake, and there's only been one printing. It's a 3-cent card. Oof. That's a rough one. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. And thank you so much, Madi the Nazgul, for recommending Glasses of Urza. We hope you enjoyed this episode. In the links below, you'll find links to our Patreon, where you can find all the content that we mentioned in this podcast, including my large podcast rant about Pactification and other awesome patron perks, including getting yourself a floating mana token. And I'll throw that up on the screen so you can kind of see what that looks like. Pew, pew. We'll also be at MagicCon, so we'll be passing out these tokens to all you listeners that will be at MagicCon Vegas. Feel free to come up to us and talk to us. Please. And we would love to jam some CEDH games with you at MagicCon as well. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next Monday. Bye.